I've been in the automotive sector for about 20 years, and Chargeway is the answer to the question of how do we help people that are not EV enthusiasts understand how to use electric cars without making them get scared.
Yeah, yeah, because charging is one of those things that, well, it's anxiety attached to it, right?
Yeah,
Range anxiety is because you don't know if you charge enough or your battery can't hold enough energy to for you to make it from point A to point B.
yeah.
So, yeah, how are you guys doing that? How are you helping regular people know or get past that point where they don't
It's
understand how it works?
Yeah, well, a big part is I mean, average people, they make assumptions about how cars work because they've been driving cars for a century. They think, okay, a car runs on gas, and gas, the word they remember is something like regular or premium. That's how
Yeah,
they understand it. And so what we found is in our research is just, well, yeah, people make assumptions going into buying electric cars too, which is, okay, I guess I'll just, if I buy this Nissan Leaf, I can go to one of those Tesla super things, right? It's like, no, you gotta find stations for your car. And then okay, but if I plug in at home, it's as fast as one of those super things, right? And the answer is, well, no, because there's power you have to take into consideration. So the assumptions that they can treat electricity like they've treated gas forever is part of the thing we want to help them learn quickly is what are the differences you have to know, which is essentially it's plug type and power level. And
yeah,
so we wanted to address that without using weird plug names like J1772 and Chatamo and CCS and without
yeah,
AC DC is just saying, look, your plug is now a color. Teslas go to red stations. Chevrolet Bolts go to green stations. And the higher the number, the faster the charge. So instead of trying to explain kilowatts and kilowatt hours and differences like that, it's more like playing Uno to find out where your car goes to charge and how you understand what that station does for you.
yeah, yeah. Colors visually, most of us learn visually, right? And if you have color coded things, then you know that the red goes with the red and the yellow with the yellow or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, how are you guys doing that? Are you guys doing that through like an app or how's that working out?
Yeah, so we started, it was just an idea. And it was a couple of years ago, we were at a conference, the EV Roadmap Conference in Oregon. And we said, hey, we've got this concept. And everybody really enjoyed seeing it. They said, we know this is a problem. But after meeting with everybody, which was various networks and utilities and automakers and everybody, literally, we finally said, okay, we have to develop out a platform. And so we did develop out software for a mobile app. But then we translated that same software into retail solutions so we can deploy large touchscreens into showrooms for dealerships to say, okay, this is exactly how you use charging, and it's like a gigantic smartphone. So if someone's in the dealership, they can visualize, oh, that's how I use charging, this is how I can plan a road trip, things of that nature, and then they can download the exact same solution to their phone. And so it's this consistent visualization and messaging that everybody gets to start using instead of, okay, I heard this from my utility, then I heard this from the automaker, then the guy at the dealership said this, and my friend said that. We've got to get away from that. Otherwise, this is going to take a long, long time. So we wanted
Yeah.
to create a consistent platform that could be integrated into anything digitally. So inevitably into vehicles, inevitably, obviously, onto websites. So if you're doing research or buying or owning, it's always the same thing for what you see. And then at the stations, you can just label them with the colors and the numbers. And that's what we've actually been doing that now with partners here in Oregon, Pacific Power and Portland General Electric. We have a pilot program where we launched basically saying, okay, let's work with the utilities to get the word out. Let's label charging stations they're deploying, but then let's work with auto dealers using what we call our Chargeway beacon, the kiosk, and then have people download the mobile app to see how they respond. And
Yeah.
it's been awesome. So,
It's been working out. They've been interested and they've been deploying it and they're
yep. So,
really.
yeah, the utilities have really liked it because it helps them answer the question of how do we tell people that we're a fuel provider now? Like, how do we even have that conversation?
Yeah.
And most of the time, utilities are going to say, "Well, we got to explain kilowatt hours because that's what
Yeah.
we sell people." And they've done the research. They know they can't explain that easily to most people. And so we said, "Well, hey, you guys need to be speaking a language that the automotive sector appreciates, and you've got to compete with the word regular." So
Yes.
how do you do that? So
Yeah.
so that's what we sought to again to prove. And the beauty of it was is we started here in Oregon, and then it began to branch out. So we work with Avista Utilities in Washington State, and the team with Austin Energy in Austin, and as well as Indianapolis Power and Light in Indiana. And so each of these programs is effectively a pilot program where we've launched our Chargeway beacons into dealerships in the area. And then the mobile app is available nationwide. So it can start to create the conversation in each of these areas that's really tailored to people that live in that city or in that state.
Wow. That's pretty cool. So how does it work? Like, so you said Teslas are red, and then the other ones are different colors. So how does that work out? How many colors are there, and what does that mean in the technical terms? Because I know for the most people, it's not going to be fun to talk about kilowatt hours and amps and volts and DC or AC, right? Now, there's weirdos like me and a few other my friends, basically. We like that stuff. We want to know, like, the kilowatt hours.
Included.
Yes. But I kind of get it. I'm in a similar I'm in a similar mission to simplify things for my audience, because I have a large audience, and all day that's what they're doing. They're asking me, like, what about this? What about that? And most of the questions that I get, I'm like, you're not understanding the basic concept of electricity and how it works. I can see it through the questions you guys are asking me, right? And so I'm like scratching my head trying to figure out how to simplify these things so that most people, the average Joe, can understand it, right? So how have you guys done that? Like, how many of those colors, and what do those mean?
Yeah, so that's the first thing we looked at. Was we said, okay, what do we have to solve? And it came down to plug type and power. And so here in North America, the colors we have are red for Tesla, and green for J1772 and CCS, so because they are a combined system, and then blue for Chatema.
And blue for Chatema.
Yeah, and so then what you then see on the software is when you choose a vehicle, it will associate a plug color with your car. It'll tell you this vehicle uses red stations or this vehicle uses green. With the Nissan Leaf, for example, it has green for standard and blue for fast charging. So instead of trying to say, okay, we're going to say AC and DC, it's like, well, people will then ask, well, what does that mean? If you tell them, hey, green is for standard charging at home with your Nissan Leaf, blue is for fast charging on the highway, that's a way for them to understand the differences quickly. And then we associate the numbers for power level within those colors to say standard charging is levels 1 and 2. We've kind of always said it that way anyway. And then fast charging is levels 3 through 7. And we categorized fast charging, DC fast charging, because you really just can't call it level 3 or DC fast, because you might find yourself at a station that's a 24 kilowatt DC fast charger, but down the street is a 350 kilowatt DC fast charger. Yeah. You got to know those differences. You can't just say, "Oh, it's fast." It's like, no, it's got segmentation in
it. it's fast, and there's really fast.
Right, exactly. Well, and that's the part is like we actually, it was funny doing the research. Is we had a slide one time in a presentation where I said, "Okay, here are these words in order," and it said big, large, massive, and super, and gigantic or something. And I said, "Okay, can you put those in order from smallest to largest, please?" And everyone in the room just kind of laughed. They're like, oh, yeah, no. And I said, okay. And the next slide was rapid, quick, super, ultra, and hyper. And I said, can you put those in order? And they went, we see your point. Because we've kind of started naming charging in a way that we're trying to come up with good buzzwords for that it's great.
Yeah.
But in reality, we have to translate this in a way that everybody can quickly identify it. And numbers are the fastest way to do that.
Yeah. So 1 through 10 kind of thing.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah, yep. And 10's always the fastest that's available, which is about that, right? At 350, but there's literally no cars that can take 350 kilowatts right now.
Yeah, Lucid Air, they're saying 300 in that ballpark.
Vaporware.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, the Taycan is at 270, the Model 3 and Model Y are at 250, and so those are in the same ballpark. Yeah. And what we found is once you get to a certain stage of power, if you're in that 15 to 20 minute full charge or charge to 80% to get back on the road, that's really getting down to that tight window of people can't really tell the difference.
Yeah.
But if you're at a 50 kilowatt fast charger and you're driving an Audi e-tron, that could take you over 100 minutes. Whereas if you're at 150 kilowatt, that will take you maybe, 25. That's a big difference. So that's where we wanted to figure out how do we categorize that in a way that someone doesn't have to learn all the engineering. They can just go, last time I was at a 6, that only took me like 20 minutes when I needed to get on the road again. Cool, I'll use a 6.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. A color and a number is a lot easier to remember than the kilowatt hours. And